So last week we looked through the whole Microsoft Identity and Access Administrator, the IDP, Microsoft's own identity and asset management platform, right? And we came to the understanding that an identity platform is anything that helps you to manage and centralize the management of users' identities. However, this course is focused on Microsoft's own solution, which is the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So we'll just do a concluding part of that introduction. And the major thing we're going to do today is go through um, the basic setup of the Microsoft Azure. For those who would have not been able to play around their labs, we'll work together. Sorry, play around setting up their demo. We'll work together today. We'll see how to create users, how to create groups, so that we begin to understand the segmentation that we have spoken about. Remember the zero trust methodology. Who can remind me about the three key foundations that we use in the zero trust methodology for identity? The three of you are sharp. Oh. One person should know one. I'm waiting.
Sorry, what was the question?
Who can remind us the three key zero trust methodology principles we use in identity?
Okay, we have just in time.
No, not that one.
Sorry?
This is the one. This is the one we talk about. Verify explicitly.
Okay, you use the least privilege.
Good.
That one.
Miriam, go ahead and speak. Don't worry.
Okay, assume bridge. Assume
As
bridge.
good. Assume bridge. So these principles, we're going to now understand how we implement them in the Azure Active Directory. So like we explained, if you want to assume bridge, it means that when you see any activity that happens on an account, you don't want to just assume that, oh, that's the right way it should be. You want to assume that that's a possible compromise. You want to verify explicitly. So somebody says, I am in HR and I need access to do XYZ. What kind of access do you need? We don't just want to assume that everybody in HR should have super admin into the HR platform. Um, so those are the things we're going to be understanding today. So as an identity administrator, you want to first of all even understand your way around the Azure Active Directory. You want to understand how you want to be able to manage the users, the devices, and the applications, which are the different forms of identity that plug into the Azure Active Directory. Please, if there are questions, just ask, okay, so that we don't go far and then you have to catch up. And please, there's nothing like a stupid question, silly question. The whole idea for the textilers community is that we make sure that we're able to reach to you one-on-one. So as you demand to understand, that's how we educate. Okay, so the Azure Active Directory, like we mentioned, is Microsoft's own cloud identity and asset management solution, right? And is integrated with security. We normally say it has a flat architectural structure compared to the on-prem infrastructure. If you've never worked with Microsoft Active Directory on-prem and your first time you're working with an identity is the Microsoft Azure AD, it's fine. There are a bit of difference in the technology, but that's okay because most people are already on the cloud today. Most applications are already on the cloud, so you won't be missing out not knowing about on-prem Active Directory, except in a situation where an organization is still doing hybrid. So in setting up the Microsoft Azure Active Directory, you will always hear things like subscription. So that's how you pay for that service with Microsoft, right? The subscription. So the demo platform that we're using is a demo subscription. So that's why we're not paying for anything, right? And then you will have tenants. Tenants is the allocation that Microsoft uses to allocate this subscription to you. So everybody has a tenant, because then people will ask, you might be in a platform where an organization will ask that, how is Microsoft able to segment Joy and Joy Limited, from Miriam Limited, when if all of us are using the Microsoft Azure Active Directory? Is because you are provisioned on a tenant to tenant basis. So a tenant is what digitally represents your organization, right? And then your identity is now the users that you are now going to assign rights and access to in that tenant. Okay. A user is an account that is specific to somebody. So it can be a user, one-on-one user mapping, or a service account for an application. So the reason why we're going this detail is so that as you begin to progress in your identity security, if you don't understand the administration part of the Azure Active Directory, how then would you understand what to secure? So by the time we're in class 4 and 5, where we will now be going more into security, because we have played around understanding how the Azure Active Directory works, how to create users, how to create groups, how to assign rights to these groups, you will now understand how to secure the Azure Active Directory identity platform. So what is an Azure business to business configuration? Now, one of the things that Microsoft, is my screen, like, is it small or is it large? Is it visible enough? That's the word, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
Okay,
you can
all right.
show it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, the Azure Active Directory, which is your tenant, as you can see in this diagram, you are here as your organization. Microsoft has allowed you to be able to do federation with other components. So today you can use your organization account to log into Google the same way you can use Google to log into your Azure Active Directory. I'm sure for some of you who set up your demo platform, you didn't have to. You first of all had to use your Gmail account as your Google account, and that's because Microsoft has allowed what we call the business to business. So Google is another business, right? And Microsoft is another business. So what Microsoft has done is to allow what we call federation, the ability for Google to be able to connect to the Azure Active Directory, so that you don't have to feel the same thing. Because I'm sure when you were opening your email on Gmail, they will ask you for your name, your phone number, in some instances your date of birth, your address. Now, what federation does for users is it improves on operation excellence. So imagine you want to integrate how many applications as an organization. If that organization is utilizing Gmail, what Microsoft is saying that we can allow the federation of your organization platform to our own identity, so that we can import those attributes that we need, right? And then once we import those attributes that we need, we can use it to populate your own identity on our own Microsoft platform. So that way we can match it that this user is the same user that is here. And that user doesn't have to go through the stress of creating a new profile. So Microsoft has been able to see how to integrate operations, even as much as we want to bring security, leverage on existing business directories. And Miriam, if your hand is up, so sometimes it's confusing me. I think you still want to ask another question. So yes, if you want to ask a question, please go ahead. All right. Key things that the Azure business to business does for you is that, like I mentioned, it allows you to connect, we use the terminology federate between another organization and Microsoft. Today, you can use your Facebook account to log into a Microsoft tenant. You can use a normal account that you create directly on the Azure Active Directory. You can use a Gmail account to connect to Microsoft. It also helps you to prevent creation of duplicate accounts, right? So Joy in Gmail is the same Joy that wants to utilize Microsoft services. I don't have to have double accounts. Microsoft has allowed for federation, and that federation is what has allowed me. I can still use my Gmail account to connect. So as we progress as an administrator, you begin to see how you would configure settings that can allow you to do this federation. So in the event where people begin to chunk out mobile applications in your organization, and they say we want seamless integration. We want our users who already have a Gmail account to be able to still connect to our application that you're hosting on your Microsoft tenant. You can leverage this possibility of a federation, which Microsoft calls business to business. And another benefit is that it helps organizations to simplify their collaboration, and that way you can still, identify things that are external identities and then be specific to assign them resources. We also have what we call the Azure business to customer, right? Business to customer. Now, the business to business is between the entity, the business entity, and Microsoft, right? While the business to customer is between the user. So, for instance, your social media accounts, as an individual, can be integrated to a business. A user too. So we've already done the federation where we said, oh, you can connect Gmail to um, Gmail to Microsoft. You can connect Facebook. That's from an organization perspective. Now, directly to a user can now use their personal account because of that federation that Microsoft has allowed. Microsoft has said, okay, a Gmail as a business can connect to us. Then you as a user, the end user, will now use your specified account that exists on that enterprise to connect to the business platform, and to consume any other kind of services. So organizations, like I said before, can host any of their service on Microsoft and can now request that users use any of their customer end users accounts to connect to the backend of that service that is hosted on Microsoft. And that's what we call the business to customers. So we've already mentioned this earlier, that the Microsoft Azure Active Directory is our identity provider for Microsoft, where we use it to manage things like Teams, Exchange, SharePoint. So the guys who are in the other stream, the guys who are doing the modern workplace, the guys who are doing the Power BI, the guys who are doing the Power Apps, all of these people are going to rely on you because you are the controller of their identity. The guys in the modern workplace learning the Exchange, learning the Teams, learning SharePoint, learning OneDrive, they are not going to be able to log into their platform without an identity. And that identity is managed and controlled by you, the identity administrator. Okay. And then in the identity management, you want to see how you want to control devices, applications, policies. You want to ensure that who is going to where has the right required access, because remember, we're applying the zero trust methodology. So if you look at your demo platform, we're currently on the E5 subscription that gives us the full Microsoft features so that we can practice. Now, Microsoft had, prior to the Microsoft Azure Active Directory, we had the on-prem Microsoft services, right? So this is just a comparison. Most times when I try to take people who are just getting into identity from the cloud, we just do this on a high level because new organizations that are starting up, a couple of them never had on-prem. And so the truth is you might never have to experience this. Right? For those of us who have been doing identity management for the last 10, 12 years, we've seen the on-prem version, and this is where Microsoft compares the different technology of Active Directory, from the Azure AD to the Azure Domain Services to the on-prem domain services. And so the Azure Active Directory is mainly the cloud platform, right, that allows you to do things like device management, provision your user accounts, authenticate them, while in the on-prem environment, it was situated in the client. So whenever you hear people use the terminology on-prem, what it means is that it is located, that service is located in the client's own data center. So prior to cloud, before cloud, for those of you who probably have not are just joining technology in this new era of cloud. Prior to cloud, what organizations did was that they built their servers and their own data centers and put these services, this technology in their own data center. So it was only accessible within their network. But what cloud has done for us today is that we have data centers spread across all over the world. So today, if you wanted to provision a Microsoft tenant, for those of you who did your demo, if you watched very well, it was pointing to a location. Some of you selected the United States, some of you selected different locations. So meanwhile, you are in Nigeria. So what does that tell you? Cloud now allows you to be able to consume services without having to be in the same location where that service exists. So those are the benefits of cloud. So this is just explaining to us the different services that we had before, from on-prem to cloud. Most of this I'm just giving a high levels just so that you have an understanding. Like I said, you can only support what you know. So licenses too. Trust me, as an admin person, you don't want to bore yourself with license. Licensing is there are people that are called software licensing administrators because they spend time to understand how Microsoft allocates its licenses. The demo platform you are using, do not get it twisted. Microsoft has given us all their type of license just so that peradventure you get a job or you go back to your existing organization. If you don't see some of those features, don't begin to get confused, right? It means that the license that you're using on your subscription does not have a particular feature. But this is just a high level comparison of the kind of licensing model that Microsoft runs in the Azure Active Directory. Organizations invest in people that help them understand licensing because licensing is a big component in making sure that you utilize a proper ROI, return on investment, when you're consuming Microsoft Cloud services. So we're not going to go into detail here, but this is just to explain that some of the functionalities that you're going to be exploring in your demo is a function of that you have been given full-blown license. In reality, if you're already in an organization that is using Office 365, there's a possibility that you might not see that feature if you guys are not on that licensing model. So we're back again to authentication, right? In identity, the first thing you want to do is authenticate a user. What's authentication? You want to validate who that identity is. Somebody says, I am this person, you want to validate it, and you want to provide the appropriate level of validation, right? So authentication is the first layer that happens during an identity consumption. If somebody is trying to access something, the first thing you want to do is authenticate the person. You want to validate who this person is. You want to be sure that this person is the person that they claim that they are. Some key terminologies that we use in identity concept is things like SAM language, which is security accession markup language. These are the type of protocols and languages that we use in identity. For beginners, this might look like an overkill for you, but there are terminologies that you will begin to see as you progress in your identity, career. You're going to be understanding the different types of way to authorize authentication. So there are different types of ways to authorize authentication. So you want to get used to these terminologies. Just have them at the back of your mind as you progress, as application developers begin to say, oh, I have this application, I want to integrate with your platform. Most applications have different types of identity concepts or federation concepts that they use to integrate, right? And so Microsoft Identity allows us to do what we call the SAM language. We do things like Web Service Federation, we do things like OpenID Connect. These are different ways that we can consume a federated identity. As you progress in your career, this will begin to make sense for you as to what it means. So you are just looking at that. I put my username and my password in an application, and then the thing confirms that I'm the one and I went in. What has actually happened is that you have used at the back end, one of these language has been used to validate your identity, right? The basic one we always know is the SAM language. The SAM language is you provide a user, the identity provider response, or the service provider response. That's the most common one for exchanging authentication and authorization between an identity provider and a service provider. But in some instances with certain applications, maybe when two applications need to talk together, maybe an application needs to go to another application and consume a web service, you'll be using things like Web Service Federation. And this is when you are beginning to go deep dive in your career and you're becoming a solution architect or a design architect. It's not just by creating users and managing users. You begin to understand how to integrate. So for Titi, who has been doing CCTV camera installation, and she's saying, I've spent all my years in doing security, physical security technology. I implement CCTV cameras for organizations, and I'm tired and I just want to do something new. And if you recall last week, I was telling her that you doing something new does not necessarily mean you have to throw away your 10 years experience in doing physical security controls. Have you sat down to look at, when I go, what's the process? What do you do when you recommend that physical security control of a CCTV camera for organizations? How do organizations determine who has access to the footages? How do organizations determine the different access controls that they give to the security team? Who can view, who can delete, who can back up? These are identities. So now that you want to expand your career, why don't you begin to look at how to integrate an identity management system into the CCTV camera technology that you have been doing? And so for someone like her, when she wants to now begin to do this, she will need to understand the type of federation identity concept she needs to use, because that CCTV technology is a business on its own, right? And now if she wants to integrate Microsoft Azure Active Directory as the identity provider for that organization, she will need to say, what type of identity concept does this CCTV platform allow for? Because that's what she will use to do her federation connectivity. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, it does.
So still on the kind of federation, and then we have what we call claim-based identity. Don't forget, we're looking at the different ways that we authorize, different ways that we authenticate a user. So we use the SAM, we use the web services, we use the OpenID Connect. Another way again is through what we call the claims-based identity. When a user signs into Azure AD and sends an ID token, it contains a set of claims about, this user. So when you log in, what is happening is that an ID token has been sent to Azure AD, and that token is saying Joy is, saying that she's a global admin, she's this, she's that. And that OpenID token, right, is using the OpenID method. And then based on what my claims are, with the Azure Active Directory respond back and say valid or invalid, right? So this is another way that we do. Like I said, depending on the integration that you want to do, there are different methods of or identity concepts that you'll be utilizing to do the integration for authentication. Now, once somebody has been authenticated, what you want to do is now authorize the person. So your username and password returns valid. Then what do you want to do? You want to authorize that, yes, joy.a that just responded with this password, she's the one. Now, based on the identity method, if it's SAM, if it is OpenID, if it is web services, we have validated that she's the one, right? So we have authenticated her. But now we need to authorize her to be able to go and do what she's supposed to do. So in authorization, we're looking at what's your entitlement type, what are the access policies that you have, and then how do we enforce it, right? So authorization covers what an identity can access and what they're allowed to do once they gain that access. So my username and password is valid, but what am I supposed to do? When I log in, what can I do? Can I delete a footage? I'm using the CCTV concept here because we know that Titi has given us a background about, I've done years of CCTV installation and I'm tired. And we want to show her how she doesn't have to, she can transition and utilize what she's learning here to expand and amplify her years of experience. So what are you supposed to do? The same thing for Madam Franca, who is a Power BI. She's setting up data sources. They tell them, people in this team, the people in in XYZ team should be able to see this kind of dashboard, and then people in XYZ team should be able to see the full dashboard. We don't want people here to be able to see this kind of sales view. We don't want people here to be able to see this kind of sales view. Someone like her would sit down with an identity administrator to say, I have different classes of users. I don't want everybody to be able to see everything. Dashboard A should be seen by XYZ, dashboard B should be seen by XYZ. That's where the authorization configuration comes in, where you want to say, what is the access and what is this person supposed to be able to access, and how do I enforce it? So the identity platform allows you to also configure the right authorization for accounts. Authorization also uses things like access token, right? You can say, oh, let's use the user information. Let's say, where's the users group? Let's use target resources. If the person is saying he's going to here, then we can, based on that, enforce the authorization policy. Let's do things like short lifespan, depending on, again, what is connecting to what. That would help you determine the type of authorization method that you will use. Most times the default ones are access tokens, which is set up once you connect a user to Azure Active Directory. But once you begin to do identity to different types of third-party applications, it'll be good you understand the type of authorization tokens that they want to use to grant access. Sorry. Some of the common authorization approach we also know is things like access control list. So you can create an access control list that will say anybody that is coming in from, anybody that wants to access database by default, anybody that wants to access database. Now you could have grouped database probably in a resource group, and you say anybody that is requesting access to database, do XYZ. You can also use role-based access control. Role-based access control is one of the simplest method to enforce or grant access to users. Role-based access control is saying Joy should have full admin, Miriam should only be able to view, Franca should be able to view and export, and then Titi can maybe just only view, but cannot even export, can only just see, she can't export, but she can, while Miriam can view and export, and then another person can edit. So that's what role-based access control. Access control, the difference between role-based is specific, granting a user a role. Access control is to say you can only go to this particular place at this particular time or access this particular resource. Policy-based too is the same. The policy-based allows you to say users who have XYZ conditions. So we'll see things like conditional access policies, where I can say, oh, conditional access policies can allow you to say things like, oh, this user is connecting from China, do not grant access. So even though the user is matching the access control list, the user is matching the role-based access control that you have granted that user, but you have put another level of policy there that says, oh, if a global administrator account is seen logging in from outside the corporate network, deny access. And that policy will also take. So these are ways we can. So your username and password has authenticated you, but the authorization is what also enables us to actually ensure that we are giving you the right access. In identity and access management, we can never overemphasize the importance of auditing. One of the major value an identity security administrator brings in any organization or any platform is the ability to be able to provide auditing. Auditing does two things for you. Auditing helps you to alert. Auditing helps you to say, oh, this is the recent behavior that we are seeing. Why are we having XYZ number of hits on why are we having XY number of hits on our internet banking application? Why are we having XY number of hits on our internet banking application from Pakistan. It's auditing and alerting that will allow you to be like, and then that way we can now use that alerting that we're seeing and auditing to now create authorization policies that can help us to be secure. So auditing helps you to be proactive. It also helps you to be reactive, to alert you so that you can now enforce policies that will resolve identity problems. Where are we having lots of people tell us that their username and passwords are always locked out? Auditing can show us that, oh, this person has logged in here, and this particular application is still using the old password, and that's why the person's account is trying the old password multiple times and is locking the person. So it's very important to enable auditing because it allows us to track who did what, when did they do it, how did they obtain the access. In the event where there's a breach, it is auditing that helps us. That's why if you most times attackers, one of the things, the first rules that they do is once they finish, getting into your environment, the next thing they want to do is clean up their trace, because auditing is what will allow you to be able to see, oh, this is how they came in, this is how they moved, this is what they have assessed. So it is very important that once you have an identity solution, you must enable auditing. The Microsoft Azure Active Directory gives us built-in reports and monitors that allows us to, to make sure that our system is functioning securely. As we progress, we will see how to utilize auditing to create certain custom rules that control or prevent us from having certain kind of breaches. So when we begin to look at things like risky signing, right? User risky signing locations. It is auditing. Oh, someone said you can't hear me. Hello, can you hear me now? Is it much better?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
So as we progress, we'll see the built-in monitoring and reporting and auditing that is on Azure Active Directory that will allow us to be able to see and enforce policies that can protect our organization. Remember, always think zero trust. You want to verify explicitly, you want to use least privilege access, and you want to always assume breach. When you're doing monitoring, these key three things must always be in your mind. Like I said, you don't want to see a trigger of that our internet banking is having IPs from Pakistan hit it more than IPs from Nigeria. You should be curious. As much as you are a global international bank, you should be asking yourself, our internet banking more from Pakistan, what kind of transaction are we doing with the Pakistanis? So as an identity person, that trigger for you should not be seen as just nobody has complained. The internet banking, they've not said there's a fraud, they've not said there's a breach. No, that alert and monitoring is what will allow you. You already assume that there's a breach, and you go and look at that alert until you can understand what is happening. So we have different types of monitoring services. We have the Azure Monitor Insight. As you progress, again, like I said, you can't know all of this in this foundation class, but these are monitoring services that are available for you that will allow you can gain insight into application logs, application metrics. Microsoft Azure allows us to even do things where we can see the type of operating system on somebody's device. We can see the users that are connecting to an internet. So if you have your internet banking solution, for instance, hosted on Azure, you can gain insight into where is this, what type of device, this IP that is accessing what type of device, what's the operating system there. And the good thing about this thing is it's not even only to secure, it can also help application improvement. In one of the financial institution I worked, we have the internet banking was not even hosted on Azure. The internet banking was hosted on their on-prem, but because they had an Azure tenant, we did an integration between the Azure logs and the internet banking, and we could see people that were struggling with the application. So we could see, for instance, iOS users on version this took 6 seconds to load page. Meanwhile, iOS users on this could load that same page on 4 seconds. And we could take those metrics and go back to the application team to say, meet your application developers. This application is not optimized for new version of iOS device, because the new version of iOS devices users are complaining, or we are seeing them spending more time to load landing page. Those are the kind of things that you get from auditing and monitoring, right? And then we have things like cryptography. This is when you want to now go deep down into ensuring that, you know, you have hashed credentials, you do things like digital signatures, you do things like encryption. The good thing with cloud security is that some of these functionalities come by default. And then if you want enhanced, you know, configurations, you can now consume those services. So cryptography is what allows us to convert data so that only a specific recipient will be able to read it using a key. You want to encrypt transaction. That's why your default secure websites would always have an SSL certificate attached. What it does is that you're on the internet and you're accessing a website. So you difficult things that whether you like it or not, that web service is open to the internet. But because it's been encrypted with an SSL certificate, what that means is that everything that you're doing on that website can only, when it's being transversed from that website to the backend server, even if anybody is able to intercept that traffic, they cannot see whatever you are passing because it's encrypted. And the only way it can be decrypted is someone who has the private key. So for those who will begin to do things like key management, it's very important when you get your SSL certificate, you do not leave your private key anywhere, because once somebody has access to your private key, they can now use it to decrypt your traffic. So those are the things that give us confidence when we use things like internet banking, when we use things like setting web services on the internet, because once we see that it has the padlock, it means that it has an encryption of that traffic. And so whatever we are putting there cannot be seen unless it gets to the backend server. And the backend server is the only one that has the private key to decrypt and then see the transaction we have done and then encrypt it back and send it. All right, so that concludes, you know, the introduction of this. Today we're going to now go into fully to look at how to create, configure, and manage identities. We'll look at how to configure and manage our Azure Active Directory. I want to believe some of you have already done this during the week if you had time. If you didn't have time like me, we'll be doing it together. You want to implement and manage external identities. You want to implement and manage your hybrid identity. For the hybrid, we might not be able to experience it here because we don't have an on-prem Active Directory, but we'll just explain what hybrid means. All right. How many of you set up your demo successfully?
Okay, I think mine is set up. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Were you able to create your users?
I think, yeah, I have some users already.
Okay.
Well, I could share
Miriam,
my screen so we could look at it.
okay,
together.
just give me a few minutes. Miriam, what about you? Miriam, you're quiet. What about you? Were you able to set up your platform? Okay. And I think Titi is still having her network challenge. I will try to reach Titi one-on-one after this class to see how we can help her. It can be frustrating when somebody wants to learn and the person is having challenges beyond their control. So I will try and reach her one-on-one. Let's see how we can help to ensure that she can benefit from this class, because I feel for her every time she joins, something keeps throwing her off. Okay. So once you set up your Azure tenant, right, the first thing you want to do is create users. There are three different kinds of users. You will see users that are created on the cloud, users that you're going to create on your Azure Active Directory. And then you will see users that were on your on-prem. So for organizations that already had the old Active Directory, which is they set up an on-prem Active Directory, they can synchronize those on-prem into the Microsoft Azure, and we call them directory synchronized identities. And then you have what you call the guest users. So for many of you today, you are all connected to Textiler's tenant, and you're all using your personal email accounts, right? So, number one, who can just, from what we did, the brief summary we did earlier, who can explain why you are able to use your Gmail account to log into Textiler's tenant? Just give me one word that you remember that I said that is allowing us to be able to do that.
Because we've been authenticated.
Yeah, because of federation, right? Because of the federation from business to business, we can use another business account, which is Gmail in this instance, to connect to another tenant, right?
Okay.
Yes. And so we are now called on the Azure Active Directory, we will be called what they call guest users.
Yes.
Because you are not going to be owning the tenant domain suffix. So you'll be seen as a guest user. So we're going to look at these three types of users, right? Now, remember too that we said that, once you authenticate, you want to authorize. So in the authentication process, which is the sign up, there are certain things that a user would need during that sign up. And those are the things that you would configure when you are setting up a user. So some of the things you can configure when you set up a user are the group. Which group should this user be in? The license, the device, the location. Like we said, in some instances, some organizations would prefer to do location-based kind of, validation for certain kind of users because they are very sure we don't have any of our users outside XYZ. So when they are setting you up, they will be specific to where they will put a location. So sometimes when you see certain kind of breach in an organization, when you are doing investigation, in order to now recommend improvement, these are some of the things that you should recommend as an identity person. Say, if all your users are in Nigeria and your head office is in Lagos and your administrators are in Lagos, now you had a breach because somebody's account was compromised. Why can't you use location-based? So why can't we go and make sure that everybody's profile has a location? So that even if somebody is doing remote work and the person probably travels to another location, the person will get an approval where we create a conditional access policy that allows that person. So we can now say, if you are outside XYZ location, then require multi-factor authentication. So that it's multi-factor authentication that we've known is that you are with your second factor. So that way we know that it is you. So even though the location is saying you are not in Nigeria and you are not in Lagos, we know that the second factor authentication is what we are using to now provide that authorization. So when you're creating your users, it's very important that you look at these, 4 key things. Licenses is what determines the kind of service the person can consume. Group is what enables us to enforce further policies. We can say if you're in this group, if you're a member of this group, you can see what devices can also allow us to say, okay, this person can only use XYZ number of devices. And location also enables us to enforce location-based policy. So these are some of the configurable user settings that are available when you're setting up users. Okay, so Madam Fraka will share her screen and we will all work together on how, sorry, what did I just click? We'll all work together on how to create a user. We'll all work together on how to create a user, and then we'll look at these 4 configurable items and see what we can configure. All right. Madam Franca, go ahead, share your screen.
Okay. Okay, what link should I go? Is it portal.azure.com?
That your demo tenant.
Okay, should I go to the office one so that we can see it though? Then, yeah.
Yeah, go to your demo tenant. From there, we'll navigate to the Azure portal.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, please. You began brush your mouth.
Okay.
Is this the demo tenant?
Mm.
Because this
Yeah, I
one is
think yeah.
showing as Cheska Global.
Yeah, but this is I'm using a different browser, so it's really okay. Let's see if I think
That's
this
why
is
I
the
would have
demo.
that's why I would have preferred you to go to the no, I would have preferred you to go to the office. This is five of the demo tenant. They just buy.
Okay,
Is
okay,
this
this is yeah, this is the demo one. Okay,
okay?
maybe I
Good.
just called
Okay.
it yeah, the demo one
Okay.
because I don't have
Okay.
the names. I had them.
Okay. So good. So now let's create a new user. So the portal.azure, this is our identity management solution, and we now want to create a new user. In a real world scenario, you might even automate this thing. That's why you can see one of the tab there that talks about bulk operations. Probably you are told to create 20 users, 10 users. You're not going to do it the manual way we're doing. Yes, you can do bulk create and bulk delete. But for today, like we said, because this is our basic introduction, we're going to look at how to create a user just one on one. So yeah, so let's create a user. Now let's assume that this user is the head of HR. So create a user. So the first thing you want to do is to give the user a username. Every organization would have a policy as to the nomenclature at which they use to provision users. For those of you who are in the corporate world, you will see that there are different ways that you use. Some people will say first name dot last name. Some people will say the first letter of the first name and the last name. Some people will say the first name and the last letter of the last name. Every organization has a nomenclature on their identity policy. So it is very important that an identity administrator, you understand what that policy nomenclature is. So in this instance, we would use first name dot last name as our own. So let's use, no, Madam Franca, you've used your name before, so you can use me, Joy. Joy dot Emedom, Emedom.
EME.
DOM. Yes. Okay. Now you go and put my name. Joy space. Now this place of name is always what we call display name. And again, all of this is based on what the organization policy is. Some organizations will say that display name should not display people's um, um, first name and last name. Some people will say it should display because, for instance, you can have 10 Joy in an organization, right? So if you just have display name as Joy, it means that if people go to the directory, they will only see Joy, 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 Joy. And then how do they differentiate? So it's very important that you, again, this whole setup is based on what's the organization policy. But as an identity administrator, you want to understand the features that are here that allows you. Um, you can use an auto-generated password, right? Because you are going to set up that the user should be able to change their password. Then groups. We're going to look at how to create a group from here or exist. So if you are an organization that already exists, it means that you already have pre-populated groups, right? And if you're an organization that is starting new, it means that you might not have any pre-populated group. And so this might be the first time you want to create this user in a group. So now we have an existing group here called Chelsea Global Limited. We might want to add this user to that group. So once we click there, click on that group, it automatically add the user to that group. Select down. Down, you see select down. Yeah. So it has added the user to that group, you can see. And then what's the setting? We don't want to block user signing because we're just creating this user. If you do that, what that means is that this user cannot sign in.
Blocked.
Yes.
Okay.
And then usage location. So you can see the location there. Many people do not put location in. I've seen that happen in Nigeria lots of time because they don't understand the value of always. It's very important to put a location, because when you want to start doing policy based, you will utilize this thing. So it's very important that you specify a location where your user is primarily based. You've passed Nigeria.
Okay, should I put it for Nigeria then? Okay.
No, don't put it for Nigeria so that we can do some restrictions. So when I want to test, my IP will not be showing Nigeria. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm in
So
Ireland.
yes.
Ireland, just
yeah, that's why I was asking.
So once you click on it on the top, you see that you can search. Click up. That place that says filter. So just type IR. That's it. And then job title. Why is it important to put all of this? Because of the directory. All right. Somebody might join the organization and might not know who the head of HR is or who the CTO is. And so when you put job titles, department, company name, they also help us in our policy. There are certain policies you might want to do, and you say everybody who has a field with department and the department is IT. We can go as deep down as that. So the reason why we're going through this is that the user creation page is not just to waste your time. These are the things that help us when we want to start doing authorization. It is these fields that we can utilize to now do authorization.
Okay, so what should I put your job
Just put
title?
HR. You can put HR manager, and then department HR. The good thing about this is that for TT that just joined, we showed you at the beginning where you can do bulk creation. So if you're in an organization that says 20 user, 10 user, doesn't mean that you'll be doing this one by one. There's a script to do bulk upload, and then from there, so you can give it to HR. Once HR populates it, they send it to you, the identity, and you just bulk upload, and it will match all these things. You can also put who the person's manager is. So on this platform, we have only Madam Franca created. So just click there so you can see how to add. So let's assume she's our manager. Exactly. So
Okay, what okay, so I'm the admin. Yeah. The admin.
so because you are the only one that is existing in the directory, that's why it brought out only your name. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted us to see what it's like to. No.
Okay, so
Just say got it. No, yeah. So if you refresh, if you click on the refresh up, it should. So it's creating my account at the top where you have bulk operations. That one is long refresh.
okay.
Good. So can we see now that we've created another user?
Okay, there's another refresh here.
Yeah. So we've created another user in this tenant called Joy. Can we see that? If you look at the fields filter, right? Now, if you click on Joy as a user, just click on Joy. There are further kind of restrictions, that properties that you can edit. Okay, so if you look at the left, you can see the different kind of things that you can do on this account. In fact, if you go to sign in logs, so by the time we sign in, we can begin to see logs here that can help us to say, oh, this is a risky user signing. So if Franca can send me the password, I can try to sign in from here, and then it will pull logs for us. We can see the device, We can see applications, we can see groups, we can see authentication methods. The reason why you have all of this is so that when you want to start doing those restrictions and policies, you can see that this field already exists on the user, and that's how you're able to match those policies and restrictions. Any question? Okay, so Franca, stop sharing. Let me continue. Let's go to the next. We're going to look at groups.
Okay.
So please, in your demo for this week, you try and create user. What I'm going to put in the chat will be the assignment will be a company. I'll give a background, a demo company, XYZ number of users in different departments in this, and I'm going to tell you create X number of users, group XYZ number of users into these groups, into these departments, so that you would actually go through that whole process and see how to assign roles, departments, groups. Okay. Sorry. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so we just looked at how to create users, right? I mean, and in the process, we looked at configurable settings for users. Now we're going to look at how to create, configure, and manage groups. So we have what we call security groups and Microsoft 365 groups, right? Security groups are groups that allow us to enforce policies, right? So when you enforce policies on these groups, it can allow you to say, okay, people in this group should be able to access this, people in this group should not. Why the Microsoft 365 groups are groups that allow us to access mailboxes, SharePoint sites, or even give access to external people. So for instance, if you create a Microsoft 365 group, automatically that group would allow you to be able to assign somebody to Teams, to a Teams channel, assign somebody to a SharePoint site. You can also even assign that group to an external user. While a security group is strictly to allow you to enforce policy or enforce rules on that group. We also have what we call dynamic groups. We also have what we call dynamic groups. Dynamic groups are groups that you create using automated syntax. So for instance, remember when I told you that each of those fields, when you are creating users, you might just look at them that this is stress. They are very important when you want to start doing identity security. So for instance, you can create a group and use a condition and say, any user that is in this department should automatically be a member of this group. So that way, you don't have to manually even assigning group. You can, for instance, say, I want that anytime I create a user, once the user is in HR department, that user should automatically enter this HR group. Once the user is in IT department, that user should automatically, and the reason why you want to do that is because probably you have conditional access policies for this group, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want that the people in your team, when they create users, they forget to add a user in a particular group, and then those conditional access policies will not be enforced. So you go and create dynamic groups that do not require anybody to manually put users in those groups. The group will always run concurrently on the user identity and say, oh, you're a member of HR group. Because your department says HR, you automatically should be a member of this group. So dynamic group allows us to create syntax that allow us to automatically populate groups without manually adding users to those groups.
Sorry, could you go back to slide 32? I didn't get the, okay, this one.
Okay, so I said that we have different types of groups. We have the group that the Microsoft 365 group is a group that once you create it, it automatically creates a Teams channel for that group. It automatically creates a SharePoint site for that group. So for instance, if I create a group HR, and that HR group, when I was creating it, I selected that it should be a Microsoft 365 group, automatically a channel called HR will be created, a Teams channel, and automatically a SharePoint site will be created. And I can add external users to that group. But if I create a security group, the main function of a security group is I want to use it to do things that require assigning policies. Like, oh, this group, I want people in this group. So a security group will not create a channel for me. It will not create a SharePoint site. What the group will do for me is that it will allow me to enforce policies on it, so that anybody that is in that group, whatever policy I've assigned to that group will take effect. So when people ask you to create groups as an identity administrator, it's good that you must understand what's the function of this group. Okay, HR already has a general Teams site. So if they are now asking for a group, maybe they'll say, oh, people in benefits department, you might now say, they don't need another SharePoint site. They don't need a Teams channel. But because you want to enforce policies to people in benefits, you can now create just a security group. But if you want to if the HR department needs a group, it's also very important that the HR department has a Teams channel so that they can collaborate as the HR department. Because if the HR group is for everybody in HR, it's not yet segmenting their function, then you can create a Microsoft 365 group for everybody in HR, so that automatically it will create a Teams channel for you and a SharePoint site.
Okay, sorry. So where would the HR department come under? Would it be under the security group or the Microsoft 365 groups?
So, like I said, it's based on what you want to achieve. So if somebody is asking, create a group for me that everybody in HR will be. At this point, you're not yet doing role-based access control. You're just grouping everybody in HR into one group. You create a Microsoft 365 group. As best practice, that's what I would do, because automatically to create a HR Teams channel for them. But when we now begin to break it down, if they say inside HR, we want the payroll team to have their own group, we want the benefits team to have their own group, then I'll start to create security groups.
Okay, inside the HR group, like a subgroup.
No, it's not a
Or
subgroup.
separate.
It just be a standalone group, but to be a security group.
Okay, it won't be under the HR group.
No.
Okay, it will be a separate group. Okay. All right, thanks.
Now, depending on dynamic group is now saying whether you are doing. So dynamic group is saying, remember I just said HR, we've created the HR group, which is a Microsoft 365 group. Now we now say inside HR, they have different departments. They have payroll department, they have benefits department, they have learning and development department. Now we want to be able to now do role-based, because we don't, that everybody in HR does not mean that when we want to now assign policy, we want to hit everybody in HR. Maybe there's a policy we want to target to payroll people, that the people in learning and development don't necessarily need to be impacted. because payroll people deal with money, maybe there's a certain kind of policy we want to target to them. But we say learning and development, they don't deal with money, so we don't necessarily need this impact. So we now create security groups. But now we don't want to manually be saying, oh, if you are in HR and your department is learning and development, let's go manually and be adding you into this into a security group. So what do? We create a security group that we call dynamic. Dynamic means that it changes by itself. So in that dynamic group, we'll put a syntax, and that syntax can be based on any kind of membership rule. We can say we want to use department or region or whatever to populate that group. So we can say create a dynamic group, which is a security group for payroll. And the condition in the syntax is that the user object ID is equals to department, which is equals to license payroll. So what that means is anybody in the organization that has department as payroll, we automatically see that they belong to a group called payroll group. This is how you break down role-based access control, so that you're not just creating users on your directory, giving everybody the same rights. And then when an incident happens, you begin to say, who was the person that had access? Because everybody has the same rights. So some of the configuration options in groups is you can do properties, administrative in group membership, roles, and administrator, which we'll see once we go and create a group. Any questions, please? Okay, so Madam Franca, again, you share your screen so that we can create a group.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sorry, ma, is it still under the Azure that we're creating these groups? In case I want
Yes.
to.
Yes, remember your Azure Active Directory is your identity provider. So that is
Yes.
where you do everything. Everything is under your Azure Active Directory. That is your identity provider. You do everything on the identity provider. And that is how, like I gave you an example, I said that is how every other person. So you see those other work stream, modern workplace, Power Apps, Power BI. It is what we do here that they will leverage on. You created a user here. That is why the person in modern workplace will be able to see a user that you have created. You create a user here and assign the user a group membership. The person in Power BI who says that create a group for me, and that group should be called maybe finance Power BI users. When Madam Franca is creating her dashboard and wants to use that group, for her, as far as she's concerned, everybody who is in finance Power BI should be able to see the dashboard that she's creating. You have created that group using whatever method you want to use. If it's security group you want to call it, if it's Microsoft 365, depending on your understanding of what the group function is, you will be populating that group. And for her, she will use that group and assign to her dashboard. And automatically, when a user in a tenant authenticates, when the person is trying to authorize, they will see, oh, the person is a member of Finance Power BI. Show the person Finance Power BI dashboard. But that won't work if you did not do this back-end work. So go up where you have home. Click on the home. Yes. Click on the Azure Active Directory. Yes. Now, by the left, you see groups. So we're going to create the first group, which is HR. Like we said, a HR group a typical HR group will want everybody in HR. HR is a big group that has so many sub-departments. So we want to create a group called HR. And we want to make it a Microsoft 365 group because we want it to create a Teams channel for us, a SharePoint site. So go to Microsoft 365. If you select the group type, exactly. You can call it any name, like I said. Naming convention is always based on an organization's nomenclature. It has nothing to do with you. Excuse me.
Is it okay to just call it HR?
Yes.
Okay. So here I can say human resources. So, so for membership type, what do I do here? Hello, Joy.
Sorry. You can see that membership type is grayed out, right?
Yes.
Good. Because for a Microsoft 365 group, it's only an assigned membership type that is available. Assigned is you are the one that will go and assign people to this group. Microsoft 365 group type does not allow dynamic.
Okay.
Good. So that's why it's not allowing you change it.
So I click on create.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so that's it. So it's created now.
So we have created a Microsoft 365 group. If we want to further prove, that this group has created a Teams channel, can you go to another tab on your browser? Yes, and go to Office 365 and log in. Titi, don't worry. I will call you. Titi, I will call you after this call. We will see how to make sure that whatever it is that is happening is solved. I'm feeling for you. This thing that always throws you out and then would not allow you enjoy this class. Why did you do more information? It's prompting you on your phone or something for your authentic MFA.
Okay, let me see. Okay, normally I use the text because,
Phone. Okay,
yes.
all right. Good. So go to admin. By your left, you see admin. Yeah. So the guys in modern workplace will be the ones learning this whole admin of Office 365. But I just want to show you how what you have done as an identity would come and sort out the issue for a modern workplace person. Person would be able to. So modern workplace people are the ones who utilize here very well. Okay, so was this where you were creating your users?
Yeah, it was in a different browser, but me, it just took the same one. But it doesn't matter. I mean, like, yeah, does because that means it's
What's happening?
because it's
That
a
means you have.
different browser.
Can you click on the second one, please? Because that's the one we're using. Click on, yeah, that one.
This
The
one,
second one. No, up.
this
Up.
one.
Yeah. I can't use my Microsoft Authentication. Not that one.
Oh, I keep going to still now.
I can't use it. Yeah. Now
It's yeah. I
you have
thought
to
it
look.
was the one that I had my full name signing with a
Can
different.
you go to can you go back to the Azure? Let's see the account you're using there. So click on the drop down. You're using your Gmail. So can you log
Yeah.
into the Office 365 with your Gmail? Go back to the Office 365. No, yes, and then use your Gmail here. So click on that place you have your yes, and then say sign in with a different account. Okay, look at it down. Look at your Gmail. Yeah. So you have different tenants. So go
Yeah.
to yeah, go to the admin. Just yeah. Okay.
Where's
Can
my
you
name?
um, maybe an admin? Just
My admin is not showing here.
click on go back to the Azure Active Directory. Go back where we have home. Azure Active Directory. Users. Click on your account. Okay, so this is the account. Can you copy? Hold on. Scroll. Pull up.
Okay,
You see?
admin.
Yes, just copy it.
I should copy the address.
Yeah. So go back to Office 365, switch user and no, not from here, not from here. The Office 365. The other tab, please.
This one.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So click on your yeah, switch, sign in with a different user down. See why you need to have. So what I normally do, use another account. What I normally do, because I also have different tenants, is that on my browser, I log in with each of the tenants. So from the browser, I get the different tenants. Use another account.
That's this
Use
one.
no, click on use another account. Now paste that email. Was that what that was not what we copied? So clean it and paste. Just clean it and paste. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if you know what the password is. Or is it set?
Exactly. Do I even remember the password?
Just click
Admin.
it.
Let me see. Let me try. Yeah. But if I go back there, I should be able to get the password. Yeah.
Where? Where?
The um where I set it up because this one, the admin here.
You can't, where do you want to get the password from?
Mm. So so what do I do? I need to do I have to like
Go back there. Let me see if it will allow you. I know Microsoft doesn't need to allow global admin reset there. Click on reset password up. Let me see if it will allow you to reset the password. Come down. No, go back.
yeah?
No, go back to the up where you have the refresh. You see reset password.
Okay.
Let's see if it will allow you to reset it from here.
It's not doing.
It's there. It's this click on your face, the icon here, so it takes away this thing. It's behind this. Yeah.
Okay. It says
Right.
admin that is a Microsoft account that is managed by the user. Only admin can reset. Only admin can reset. But I'm the admin of this account. Looking for instruction.
No, no, no. Okay. Can you click on the icon and sign out? Let's see.
I'm using a different browser, so I don't know why it's even. I'm using Edge here, but my main account, my company account, is on Chrome. So how come it's seeing it in Edge?
I don't know.
Should I
Um,
try signing again?
yeah, click on that one to sign out. Yeah. Okay, so
Sign it.
close all the browser and relaunch it. That's close all the Edge and relaunch Edge. Close it. Everything.
And this one too?
Yes, please. And relaunch Edge. Yeah, so relaunch Edge. Okay, so go to portal.azure. Uh, use another account. Let's see.
Okay, I shouldn't use the Gmail.
No, use another account. Let's see.
Okay.
See if it will paste that admin. Clean it off. I hope it was still in the paste.
I should paste the other one.
Yeah, do paste. Yeah, okay. Just click on next. Okay, click on the password and then use the try the first one. Let's try any of these passwords.
Any of these.
Yeah, it doesn't go. Try the second one. Okay, click on it again. Try the second one. Nah. Yeah.
So it's not
Click on the forgot my password. Okay, you want to try something.
yeah. Does it have do I have a number of time I should try before it kicks me out or something?
Yeah. Do
Okay.
forgot my password. Let's see.
Okay. But where will it send it?
Yeah, just type. I don't know how you set up your tenant. So just Q.
You go
Yeah.
to this
No, just chill. Put the QP SD.
yes.
Yeah. So email. It's going to send it to your Gmail. Email. Click on email. Click on email. Now go to your email and copy the verification code. Next. So if you're just watching us, what we're trying to do is a demo account. We forgot the password and so we're trying to reset it for those of you who will be watching us later on YouTube. So these kind of scenarios happen in real life. And that's why it's okay when it happens in in trainings. There are times that you just have password mix up. So what we did was to do a password reset, so that we can go back to our demo task, which is looking at creating a group. Save it, please. Okay, so click on portal.azure on the browser.
Another browser, yeah.
So go back to that place where we changed the password. So it says sign in, say click here. Good. So yep. Use another. No, no, no. You're
Oh,
the
use
one for the.
another one. Oh
Ah,
boy.
you're the one, Madam Franca.
Okay, let
Go
me
back.
cancel.
Just go back. Just go back. Back button. Use
Okay,
another
use
account.
another.
Yeah. Paste
Okay,
that admin. Oh, oh, jeez. The paste has gone out.
and it's a long one.
Jeez.
Admin dots
Oh,
not showing here.
jeez. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Next. The password you just created now for it. It's, yeah. Okay. Just say ask later. Ask later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe later. Okay. At the search up, just do Azure AD. Yeah, that's it. Come down. Look at Azure directory down. The third one. Yep. Okay. I just want to be sure that this is where we are. Click on users. I just want to be sure it's the tenant where we've been working. Users. Okay, that's good. Now go to another tab and type Office 365.
Oh, Office.com.
Yes, so no, come down, switch to a different account. You like your Gmail account though. Go back,
Okay.
switch to a
Switch
different
to
account.
different.
Yeah, sign in. Ask me later.
Tax
Ask
later.
me.
Mm.
Yes. Okay, so click on your admin by the left. You have to note down, see the arrow by the right, up. Look at the slide. You have to go through the slider, the three slider. Look at it by your right there. The arrow telling you to click, click, click. Yes. Yes. Now can close this one. Admin. Admin. Ask later. Now do show all. Okay, go to users. Let's verify that it's the same users we have in our Active Directory that we have here. That's it. So this is your demo tenant. So scroll to the left and scroll down to the left, left. Just leave here. We'll sort this after the class. Just go to the left so that we can wrap up. Scroll down, 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 down. Yes. So you can see your different admin portals. So if you right click on SharePoint, right click on SharePoint by the right click and say open in a new tab, right? The first link up, yes. Come down to scroll up, scroll up. You see groups, teams and groups down. Expand it up. It's up there. Teams and group, yeah, expand it. Now click on active teams and groups. Can you see the group we just created? Now, can you minimize that thing that says help and support? Can you minimize it? Now, if you scroll to the right, okay, I need to verify why it didn't create a team status. It's supposed to create a teams, it didn't. So I'll find out why. Yeah, it's supposed to put that teams icon down there. Yeah. Okay. So I'll find out why it didn't create the teams. Ideally, the M365 group should create a teams group for you. Okay, so this is so there are two ways. An identity administrator. So back. So if you joined us again, we were trying to just sort out our demo tenant that was giving us issue. We were at the place where we were looking at creating groups, right? Now, as an identity administrator, most times you don't come to the admin.microsoft interface. An identity administrator will spend time on the Azure Active Directory portal, right? While a modern workplace administrator, a SharePoint administrator, a Teams administrator would focus more around here, right? So we just created a group in the Azure Active Directory, and we wanted to see if that group is reflecting in our tenant here, and that's what we have. Um, we have overshoot our time for today. Even though we started by 10:30, we have still done more than 2 hours. Um, so we're going to
Okay,
take home. I'm going to drop. You
okay,
can stop
sorry. I
sharing.
was going to say, yeah, okay. I was going to say if I am kicked out, my battery is low now. So yeah. Okay, I
Yeah.
should stop sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. What I will
Uh,
tell you to do, what I will tell you to do is you see that Edge browser that you were sharing, just
yeah.
go to the top of the Edge browser where you have your face, click there and sign in with this admin account. So that way you won't make mistake again. You will always use that account on the Edge for you.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to, once we end this session, I'm going to drop in the Discord channel the link to the lab, and I'm going to drop a summary of what our tax is, what we want to do, the reason why we're going as nitty gritty as you, understanding how to create a user, create a group, which you might not eventually do as an identity security person, is because if you don't understand that these properties exist when a user is being created, when you need to begin to enforce your authorization authentication policies, you would not know that these are the properties that you use. That's why the SC300 course starts from the granular. You need to be familiar with the Azure Active Directory when you want to do security. So you cannot just come now and begin to know how to create risky signing policies, conditional access policies, when you don't even know the user properties fields. You don't even know where they exist. You don't even know where to go and look for this field. That's why we're taking time to spend time to go through this, so that by the time we're in week 4 and 5, where we're now looking at the security policies and the rest, you would have been familiar with this. So what we're going to do, I would, sit down after this session to drop the link, is please create your tenant. Please create your tenant. If you haven't created your tenant, please do. And then the task will be how to create users, how to add users in group. We're going to look at how to create 3 different types of group. We'll create a Microsoft 365 group, we'll create a security group, and then we'll create a security group that is a dynamic group, utilizing what you have done when you created the users to see how that your dynamic group got populated, right? And then I'll also drop the course outline so that you can see how to read. I'll drop the link to the Microsoft Learn. If you already know how to go to Microsoft Learn, go to Microsoft Learn and look for SC300, and you will see also the SC300 portal, which is very important that you go through that learning as we are learning to get familiar before we come into these sessions. Is there any question? Okay, in the absence of any question, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you very much for today. And Titi,
Sorry.
please drop your
Yes,
phone number.
yes, ma'am.
Drop your phone number for me,
Okay,
either
ma'am.
in the chat group here or in the Discord. I need to call you so that we can talk about how to
Okay,
help
ma'am.
you make sure that you can
Okay,
enjoy this session. We're concerned about how your
thank
network
you.
is performing. Yeah.
No, I've changed phone completely. I think this is not giving me problem. After I
Okay.
troubleshoot, I couldn't get through, so I have to change it complete to another phone completely, and I think I'm fine now. So I'm going to
All right.
see how it goes next meeting by specialists.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
All right, Miriam.
regard the last, hello, ma. The
Yeah, go
last
ahead.
time you promised us that we are going to have the fundamental of said how we are going to get voucher for AZ 900, ma.
Yes, please remind me again in the chat group. I'll give it to you. Remind me. I'll
Okay.
try and do everything today. After this call, I have time, so I'll do everything.
Thank you so much, ma.
All right, Miriam, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, ma. Sorry, I just want to reconfirm that the practicals we did today were more of on Azure, and not on the Microsoft 365 Manager that we started last week. So I just want to know um where to
We did
where
not
to
we
go
did
and
not look at
practicalize all this.
we did not look at the Microsoft 365 admin last week. Everything we have been doing is on the Azure Active Directory, because the Azure Active Directory is your identity provider.
Okay, because I think last week I don't know if I dropped a screenshot of what I was trying to do. I don't
What I can
know.
do
I
for
don't know
what
where.
I can
I
do
think
for
that's Microsoft.
what I can do for you, Miriam, is that if you are available, we can stop the recording and we can work together to make sure that your tenant is working, if that's what you need. But
Yes, ma.
we have never worked on the Microsoft 365 tenant. What we did today was for me to show you how what you are doing in the identity is being replicated to the 365 tenant, so that the person who is in modern workplace, the person who is in Power BI, they can still benefit from what you are doing. As an identity person, your major tool is the Azure Active Directory.
Okay, ma.
All right, thank you once again. If you're going to be watching this from YouTube, you're going to see times where we were trying to just sort out our demo tenants. Please bear with us. The reason why we allow those kind of things is because in reality, these are the kind of troubleshooting scenarios you will. So when you're watching us from YouTube, please feel free to skip where we were troubleshooting. But peradventure, you're also experiencing that issue. It'd be good that you watch the troubleshooting so that way you see how to resolve it. Thank you very much once again. This We will be coming back next week to continue to look at how to create users, manage groups, assign groups, create guest users. The reason why we're spending time at this foundation level to explain it is that for you to enforce security policies to an identity, you must understand the properties that you need to set on this account. please, if you're not yet following us on our Discord channel in Textilers, it's very important that you follow us on any of our social media platforms and chat with the admin so that they can add you to our Discord channel. In the Discord channel is where I'll be sharing the link to the Azure virtual training that gives you free voucher. That's where I'll be dropping the course outline and the lab. So if you're not yet joining us on any of our Discord channel, but watching us on YouTube, it'll be very important that you join us so that you can benefit from all these links. Have a wonderful weekend and see you next week.
Thank you very much, Joy.